2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It is it's that time of the year again. Once a year, I make a sojourn out to Cleveland, Ohio. I check the temperature, usually a little different in the spring and the summer than it is by the time we get to December. This might actually be the weekend where I wake up on Sunday and I go see the Christmas Story house with the leg lamp that I have here in my studio for real. Scott Petrak has been covering the Browns for as long as I've been covering the Browns and the Ravens. He is the Browns writer for the Chronicle-Telegram and the Medina Gazette, and one of my many foils in Cleveland. I mean, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. I always try to get together with you guys, and I mean, I don't even know what to say at this point because it sort of writes itself to some degree in its own special way, but this year's been particularly harsh, I think, on Browns fans, Scott.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, it's not because of the record or any of that, because we've gone through much worse. It was only 2017 where the Browns were 0-16. But it's the expectations. The Browns played well, especially in the second half of last season, got to 7-8-1. They had Baker Mayfield. They added Odell Beckham Jr., all of it. And, people were talking playoffs. People were talking Super Bowl. And for the Browns to fall so short of those expectations has really been a big, big letdown for the fans.
Well, and I think it all gets started in April, right? And look, I joked around with you and everyone else. I had you on early in the year, and look, the Ravens lost to the Browns, right? So you look at all of this, and you saw all the expectation, and I joke with everyone. We all know the Browns are winning the Super Bowl. The juxtaposition, literally, that this week I am in South Florida getting hotels together, getting parties together for fans, to take fans to Miami, that we're going to allegedly be playing 2 home games here in an AFC Championship game with a team that most teams have had trouble staying in the gym with Lamar Jackson since that Cleveland game. It's kind of otherworldly. And, I mean, from your side of the fence in covering this, on the outside, I look at it and said, look, they brought some sort of volatile players in there at a volatile position. They hired a coach who may or may not have known what he was doing. Where do you put this thing 14 weeks into this thing, Scott, having witnessed it? Why did it go so wrong? Is it as easy to say, well, they had Freddie Kitchens, if they had Bill Walsh, maybe they'd have won 12 games?
Well, I think if you make that switch, yes. If you change out Freddie Kitchens for, the greatest of all time, I mean, Bill Belichick is probably, 10-4 with this team. I mean, there's a lot, in my opinion at least, there's enough talent on this team to be a playoff team.
And it's the first time you've been able to say that and look me in the eye, maybe ever, like literally, right? Like Pettin had a pretty good team. Pettin had a good team. Was it? Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I mean, Pettin's team was, they were a little hit or miss. I mean, Josh Gordon was good. But 2007, they won 10 games, right? And they had Derek Anderson played at a high level for that year, and Braylon Edwards and Kellen Winslow and Jamal Lewis. So you can flash back to there. But until now, that was the last team where I felt that. So, yeah, I think a lot of it does fall on the shoulders of Freddie Kitchens. Rookie coach has never been a head coach at any level. He's calling the plays, and he'd only called plays for the last 8 games of last year in his career. So a lot's on his plate, and I think the failure of the offense to live up to its potential has been number one. And part of that's Baker Mayfield, but a lot of it is Freddie Kitchens putting Baker Mayfield in the right situations, figuring out a way to get the ball to Odell Beckham Jr., which they haven't done all year. And my mind is still blown that they haven't figured out how to get the ball to him more and make him have a bigger impact on this team. And then, I don't think you can discount completely the personalities that, again, maybe falls under Freddie Kitchens, him handling everything that comes with being a head coach and with having Odell Beckham and having Jarvis Landry and Myles Garrett and all that kind of stuff. And part of it's where this team has come from. And there's not a lot of guys on this team that have had winning experience. And I think that's an easy juxtaposition with the Ravens, that they're both 2-2 when Cleveland leaves Baltimore, and the Browns can't handle their success and lose 4 in a row, and then have to fight, scratch and claw to just get back to in the playoff discussion. And Baltimore goes on a streak and wins 12 in a row or 10 in a row. So it's a lot of its makeup, a lot of its character, and the Browns just aren't where they need to be, and clearly the Ravens are.
I sit here in another offseason where the Orioles aren't doing anything but embarrassing themselves and promising more losses this year and, fortifying the minor leagues while Major League Baseball is trying to divorce minor league baseball. But leadership, whether it's Rob Manfred in baseball, whether it's Roger Goodell in the NFL, whether it's Steve Bisciotti and Dick Cass with the Ravens and Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta and Harbaugh and all of the good things that would allow Lamar Jackson to grow in the garden, that is the purple team here, and importing heart like Earl Thomas and importing Mark Ingram and, finding the right pieces that they don't import Odell Beckham around here and they don't recruit Jarvis Landry and they don't promote guys from buddy to the quarterback to head coach. I mean, where are the Haslams in all this? I haven't heard their name. But beyond that, John Dorsey was the architect. He was the guy he was going to do all the ordering of all the vegetables and all the meats and the produce. And he was going to pick the groceries and, all this stuff. And I don't hear him being criticized. And I'll say this, on our side, I'm giving DeCosta all the credit in the world because of L.J. Fort and because of D'Amato Pecco and because of picking up cornerbacks like Marcus Peters in the middle of the season and signing Josh Bynes. I mean, the pro personnel part of it is doing that. I haven't heard John Dorsey's name in any of this, but all of the arrows have been on the head coach. And it feels to me like, where's the owner in making decisions for what a head coach needs to be, and where's Dorsey to manage that as well? Because to me, this is whatever this lousy record's going to be at the end of all this 2 weeks from now. This is an organizational thing. They're going to lay it at Mayfield. They're going to lay it at Myles Garrett swinging helmets. You're going to lay it on the coach. The coach probably shouldn't have been the coach, right? Literally.
Well, I mean, that's a interesting point, and you're probably right. And if they just make the decision to move on from Freddie Kitchens after 1 year, then obviously you're right, and obviously that's an organizational mistake and flaw and all that.
Well, how couldn't they at this point, right? I mean, are they really going? Are they going to go back and give him 12 more months? Really?
Well, I mean, I would say, and this is just my guess, is that it's if you're playing the odds, it's 55% that he's gone, maybe 45% he comes back. Now, and I could be wrong. I thought it was higher. I thought the game yesterday, the loss in Arizona, swung that. But we talk all the time about how this organization can't get continuity, and there's never stability. Well, here's a chance to have that stability. They could keep Freddie Kitchens.
But you're keeping the wrong guy. Is that stability? I don't know.
Well, I mean, on its face, it's stability, right? I mean, you're keeping somebody, right? So, and obviously they made the mistake with Hugh Jackson. They kept him for 2.5 years, and in the search for some kind of continuity, and that hasn't happened. So it's a tough spot, and the fact that the Browns have lost forever doesn't do anybody any favors, and everything is viewed through a different prism. And, man, he didn't win right away. Will he win ever?
Hey, man, I'm like that with Angelos. I am, it's right? Like Trump. I mean, he lies every day, so today's just another day. It's like the Angelos story for 25 years is there's nothing as we celebrate Mike Flanagan's life, out on Facebook on his birthday. I mean, there's nothing that I haven't seen in 25 years that I wouldn't believe. So, therefore, with the Browns, from the outside when they hired Freddie Kitchens and when I talked to guys like you after the draft and all of this expectation came, I'm like, man, the coach is really, really important. I mean, I know that from being around here with Billick and Harbaugh and, watching Barry Trotz win a cup. I mean, I have this incredible respect for how hard it is to do, how hard it was to be Marvin Lewis all those years in Cincinnati and try to do it. And the Andy Reids and the Belichicks and, these guys that can do it at that level. Even Harbaugh, what he's been through with the Knicks quarterback and a whole different reboot here and having the best team in football, it's a gift, man. And when you get that position wrong, everything else is wrong, as you know, with Hugh Jackson around there, right?
Right. And I'm not arguing that point at all. And I'm not even arguing to bring Freddie Kitchens back. I'm just saying if they do, that would be why. Because they're desperate for continuity, and they think that he'll be able to learn from all these rookie mistakes. And there have been a ton of them. But if you do that, then you have to be convinced that he's going to learn. And he won't make the same mistakes twice. And I'm not ready to say that he will, or even that he won't. But that's what that decision comes down to. And then you have to know that you can do better, right? That you can go hire somebody better the next time around, and the Haslam's have failed to do that. And they let John Dorsey make the hire of Freddie Kitchens, and if they give up on it after 1 year, that means, man, do you trust that guy to make a second hire within 12 months? I mean, these are the big decisions that they have to weigh, and I don't think they've reached one yet. I mean, that's my take on it, is that they haven't decided. Now, sure, they very well might fire Freddie when they play Cincinnati on December 29th. I mean, that's obviously on the table, but I know that this ownership does not want to rush into that decision, given its history. And that's the problem when you come in and you fire a bunch of coaches and you lose a bunch of games, is everybody, we're so conditioned to, oh my gosh, he's not the right guy, oh my gosh, he's not the right guy, and Freddie Kitchens might not be the right guy. The question is, could the right guy be here, and you're willing, not even with Freddie, just in general, and you're willing to dispose of him because he gets off to a bad start, because there's some bumpiness in the road. I mean, those are the things you have to weigh. I mean, Mike Tomlin didn't win right away. I mean, there's plenty of coaches in the history of the NFL that didn't win right away, yet got better. Bill Belichick was bad to start, right? I mean, his teams were bad. They lost games, but he turns out to be the greatest coach ever. So, and I'm not saying that about Freddie Kitchens at all. I'm just saying those are the things that the ownership has to consider before firing their fifth coach in 8 years.
Scott Petrak has been seen it all. His eyes, Indians and Browns alike, and Cavaliers and LeBron, and going from parades that really happened to parades that never happened. And, you know, in the case of where you are in Cleveland, this is like sort of dumping the salt into the wounds as I fly in on Saturday night for a game on Sunday that probably won't be well attended. But if you're going to get a shot from the Browns, it better look better than it did against the Cardinals the other day, that there is a little something between these franchises and players and where the Ravens are and where Lamar Jackson is, and certainly where Lamar Jackson is from the last time when you left Baltimore with a crab cake here 10 weeks ago. Just some thoughts from the other side of the fence watching Lamar mania happen since you guys, didn't envision that sort of Lamar 10 weeks ago, right?
No, I mean, my first thought is, how did the Browns beat this team and beat them pretty easily, right? I mean, it's 40-25. Ravens had a late score in Baltimore. We talked after that game. I remember talking to you from the airport. I thought that was the change in the division, right? The Browns go in there, they win. I was not overly impressed with Baltimore. Lamar Jackson was just okay in that game.
Well, the Browns winning in Baltimore is just like unto itself. That's Haley's Comet, literally, right?
Exactly. But then for the Ravens to do what they've done since then is incredibly impressive. Lamar obviously is going to be MVP. And you look at it from Cleveland like, oh my gosh, the Browns have to face them twice a year for the next X number of years. And how difficult that's going to be. And Browns fans know what that's like. I mean, they played Big Ben twice a year forever, right? And he's killed them. I mean, I think he's lost 2 games, and he was drafted in 2004, right? So it would be another example.
Wow, he's 30-2 again, or something like that against them. Wow,
like 21. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. I think it's 2. He's missed a couple games. He didn't play this year. He sat out a couple, but it might be 25-2-1 or something. I mean, there's a tie in there. It's insane. So, could Lamar Jackson be the next guy like that in a heated rivalry for your town? Especially when, Baker was drafted, obviously, in the same draft as Lamar. And, I know some people within the Browns like Lamar. I don't think they liked him at number 1. I think they liked him as a player. I know I talked to somebody in the front office at the Combine, and out of nowhere brought him up to me and how, you got to watch out for this guy, and I think he's going to be really good. But for the Browns to take Baker 1, and then Lamar fall to the Ravens in the same draft, and you look, he's going to win an MVP in year 2, and Baker's regressed in year 2. I think there's a lot of frustration, a lot of hair pulling with, gosh, just when the Browns fans thought they had a chance to ascend to the top of the division with Big Ben on the decline, and look like the Ravens maybe, I don't think people in Cleveland gave the Ravens a lot of credit for that division title last year. It just felt like this was the Browns' time. And if you watch this season, obviously the time hasn't come. And then when you look at Lamar, you got to think, man, is the time ever going to come? Or how is Baker going to get to that level where he can go in and play Lamar and score enough points where the Browns have a chance to beat him?
Well, in studying leadership over all of these years, and I try to talk about that so much in Baltimore Positive and all the stuff that we talk about when we're not talking about sports here, the leadership part of this would dictate, and this is what I've talked about at the highest level with everyone, that selling Lamar Jackson to a head coach, to a personnel department, to an offensive coordinator, to an owner, right? To say we're going to do this way. It's never been done before. We're going to Mars, Scott. It's never been done before. And if I'm John Dorsey on my next gig after getting thrown out of Kansas City, if I'm, Freddie Kitchens getting my first gig or whomever, Hugh Jackson, whoever it is, I want Baker Mayfield. I want that guy. I don't want Lamar Jackson because I have to go get me some Willie Sneads. I got to go get me 3 tight ends. I got to get me, these athletic, getting down the field legs offensive guys, not these big guys that are going to protect my 6'5" statue back in the pocket, my Matt Ryan or my Joe Flacco, right? So the way it has to be built to be 12-2 and the sacrifices that need to be made, and more than that, the reputation part of selling it, where in a place like Cleveland, it's always a turnstile. For Bisciotti to sit with Harbaugh and DaCosta and Newsom, who he's known for a decade and a half, or maybe more, and they all sit around and say, you know what, for the next 24 months, let's zig while they're zagging. And if this kid's available in the first round, let's take him. We'll build around him. We'll try it another way than having to go 2-14 and, throw a dart at the next kid from LSU,
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's a great point. And I do think their history of winning gives them some leverage, right? Some clout, collateral, whatever word I'm looking for, to try something different. And the fact that you're right, okay, Joe Flacco is done, so how do you reboot? Well, here's a way we can reboot without having to do something drastic as far as trading up or tanking or whatever it's going to be. I appreciate that they were willing to do that. And obviously, then once they did it, figured out the best way to make it work. And they continued that blueprint. When you talk about, like when I kind of contrast that with Baker Mayfield, I do think John Dorsey felt like he went out on a limb with Baker Mayfield because he was only 6 foot, 5'7" an inch. And, he had the issues he had at Oklahoma. He was not a slam dunk number 1 overall pick. Sam Darnold was supposed to be the guy. Then you had, Josh Allen, who looks like the prototypical AFC North quarterback. And Dorsey said, no, I'm going to take this guy. This is my guy. So he did go outside the envelope in his opinion. He just didn't go outside enough, let's say, when you're talking about Lamar Jackson. And I get it. I understand why I didn't. I didn't have Lamar in my discussion for the number 1 pick when I was doing all my quarterback scouting. But that does say something about the insight from that Ravens front office. And they're not apples to apples, but I thought the same thing with Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. I did not, when I watched, not that I'm super scout, but I thought you watch Mahomes' film, and to me it was far from a slam dunk that he would step in and be an MVP-type player in his first year as a starter. There was just too much craziness on his film, and Kansas City saw it and didn't flinch, and I do respect that boldness.
Well, and you can only have that boldness when, you have a job, and Andy Reid can do that.
Right.
But in most places in the league, and you don't have the latitude. I mean, latitude might have been the word you were looking for. You don't have the rope because you're 1-5-11 from being the next Brian Flores or the next Adam Gase or the next Josh McDaniel. You're just going to get the next Mike Pettin, right? You're going to get flushed out. And part of the Ravens' success and the magic to it is this continuity that lies behind it that the Browns can never get right. And when they do go continuity, they do it with the wrong people. And I guess in the case of Freddie Kitchens, so Scott Petrak joining us here. You can follow him. He's out on Twitter at Scott Petrak. That's Petrak. He's a Browns writer. He's been covering the Browns for a long, long time with the Chronicle, Telegram, and the Medina Gazette. When you talk about things that went wrong this year, if I say to you, what went wrong this year, it's easy to say, well, let's throw darts at Freddie Kitchens and the Myles Garrett helmet swinging thing. But in your words, what went wrong as we sit here in Week 14 to say, how are they not even in the race?
Yeah. I would start with the offense never meshed. and it's hard to believe when you have the leagues. And Freddie Kitchens was quoting these stats to us today, trying to defend himself. Like, not defending himself, but saying, hey, there's a lot of good here. Everybody's focusing on the bad. Here's the good. We have the NFL's leading rusher in Nick Chubb, who's got 1,400 yards. Jarvis Landry has 1,000 yards receiving. Odell's at 910. Kareem Hunt's been playing really well since he came off suspension. He points all those things, yet they have these individual stats, and they have these huge names, and they've only scored 20 points in a game 7 times, right? So they're unable to put it together offensively, and like I said, my mind still gets blown by that, but that's where it starts, because this team should be a team that puts up 27 a game and can compete with the Baltimores and the Kansas Cities, and they just haven't been able to do that. So that's where it starts, and we have to remember, Freddie Kitchens calls the plays, so he is directly responsible for the offense's lack of production. And then you look at defense, and we talk about their defensive line. They thought it would be a special unit that carried the defense with 4 potential Pro Bowlers. And, Sheldon Richardson's been good. Larry Ogunjobi's been good. Myles Garrett was good before the suspension. He had 10 sacks, even though he wasn't dominant. Then he gets suspended. Olivier Vernon gets hurt. And all of a sudden, their D-line can't stop the run. They can't rush the quarterback. So it's just a lot of unfulfilled potential, and that's what makes it so frustrating. And I'll go back to it, and I'm not saying John Dorsey doesn't deserve any blame, because he does, and he's starting to get a little bit of it. But when I look at it, I think these guys, this team had enough talent to win, and why didn't it happen? And yes, players didn't maximize their potential, and yes, Baker Mayfield took a step back, but it feels bigger than that to me, and that's why you might think it's the easy way out, but I do think you have to look at the coaching staff as far as why a team doesn't reach its potential.
Can they beat the Ravens this week? I mean, I guess that the answer to that is sure they can. I don't know where they are in the curve. Certainly, that bunch of ragamuffins I saw running around out in Arizona the other day. I mean, I'm expecting that the Ravens will get their best punch, whatever that is, this week before the holiday.
I would agree, too. Here's what I'll tell you, that, I'm a big believer in teams don't go on 10-game winning streaks, right? You just don't see it very often. So
I mean, I'm laughing at it because I've sat here watching it for 10 weeks, and as we're sitting in the press box at the LA Memorial Coliseum and they're winning 38-6 again in the third quarter, we're like, what is going on here? And now I'm making Super Bowl plans. So we just take it as a given that the Browns will Brown and Charlie Brown before the holidays, and I'll get to touch the leg lamp and we'll get out of there and it'll be a laugher. But I'm like you. I'm like we're at a craps table here. Nobody's rolled a 7 in a while,
Exactly. It feels like you're due for whatever, a clunker, a game that's not played at the utmost level. Not that all 10 of them have been, but it looks like you've been playing the Ravens have been playing at a real high level. So
not much to complain about around here on Monday, Scott.
Right. So maybe they come back to earth a little bit. It feels like it can be the Browns' last stand, right? This is, they go to Cincinnati for Week 17, but you put everything into this game. So I think the Browns have a puncher's chance. But when you watch them play Arizona like we did yesterday, it's hard to envision the Ravens not scoring about 50 on them. So something drastically has to change defensively. Maybe they get Vernon back. Maybe they get Eric Murray back, and that helps. But they would need help from the Ravens, because the Browns defensively, I got a hard time seeing how they're going to stop the Ravens. And I got a hard time on the other end seeing how Baker's going to put up 35 points if that's what's necessary. So, they're deservedly big underdog. I wouldn't give them no chance, but I would tell you this. They need to start fast, because if the Browns get behind, then it feels like one of those games that could get away from them.
All right, there's nothing like the holidays in Cleveland at Higbee's and the Christmas Story House. Scott Petrak joining us here from the land of Cleveland. Have you ever been to the Christmas Story House, or is it something I should?
Have.
Okay, so I'm thinking about like 10 a.m. Sunday morning, like just Ubering over there and doing it. I mean, should I do it? Yeah?
Yeah, you should, but when I was there on a Saturday, I think, and the line was pretty long. So
all right.
make sure you can get in and out and get to the game on time.
I'm a guy who has a leg lamp on my set here, so I mean,
you can get there
at some point. Okay, all right, I'll get there early. I'll bring coffee and cupcakes and all that good stuff. Scott, appreciate you, man. We'll see you Sunday. Scott Petrak joining us here from the land of Cleve. He's a Browns writer for the Chronicle, Telegram, and Medina Gazette. Always a great informed guest, which makes my life a lot easier around here. As we get ready for the Browns game, Luke's on the backfields in Owings Mills. The buyatoyota.com audio vault is there 24 hours a day. From anywhere in the world on your mobile device, Baltimore Positive reaching out through the holidays with Police Commissioner Michael Harrison. We're also going to be chatting with Baltimore City Schools CEO Sonia Santelises. Check all that out at Baltimore Positive. We got big shows coming up next month, as well as we get ready for the holidays. And yes, I am scouting Super Bowl possibilities. We could say that out loud as long as we beat the Browns on Sunday. Send me an email, nasty@WNST.net. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live at our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST, Tassa, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Lamar Jackson.